Okay, so attaining a sustainable development is not an easy task to do altogether. So there are a lot of hindrances, there are a lot of roadblocks that is required to remove while attaining a sustainable development. So let us look into some of the challenges that is required for attaining a sustainable development ground in India. So the first thing is lack of effective leadership and coordinated partnerships. Now there are a lot of thing that drives a country like India. There are policies, there are policymakers who make policies. There is a legislation, then we have investments, then we have implementations, and then we have advocacy, and then popular representations. Now, not only leadership but partnership between central and state government is an absolute importance when it comes to having a particular concept to work in a country like India. So that is one thing that has to be taken care of, okay, as a challenge for SDG or sustainable development group. Next is the social inclusion. Now as we know, India is a land of diversities. We have regional diversity, we have cultural diversity, we have climatic diversities. So a key challenge is to adopt a meaningful standard of basic needs for all people from all parts of the country, irrespective of disparities, diversities, urban rural gaps, gender inequality, etc. So factors like biodiversity loss, degradation of water, dry lands, forests, and climate change are the challenges to the peace and prosperity, as they threaten to reverse the achievements to date and undermine any future gain. So this is the second challenge that we have. Next is undefined scope and spread of SDGs. Now a sustainable development goal are 17 in number and have 169 targets, for example. Although this list of SDGs is accepted in principle by all members, yet the list is too large for implementation and attainment purposes. So it's not only about one city, one district, or a country. It is about the entire planet working together. Okay, so all the countries across the planet needs to work together for a sustainable development. Only then there will be a fine balance between technological advancements, economical growth, and having a good environmental factors. This is the lack of measurable indicators. The SDGs define some targets which are aspirational but are vague in terms of scope and indicators of achievements. For example, how will the progress toward well-being for all be measured? There are not well-defined indicators for the target well-being for all. Now, how would you define well-being for all? Societies are differentiated with different castes, for example in our country, with different income groups. Okay, we still have people who survive in one meal a day. So now how would you have a sustainable development goals where we have this concept called well-being for all? So this is one important thing. Next, similarly, there are not well-defined indicators for safe drinking water. There are various parts across the planet where people thrive for safe drinking water. That is a basic necessity to survive. They don't have it. So we need to address all of these issues. Next is finance and budgeting for SDGs attainments. For attaining the 17 SDGs, the government must allocate specific budget towards it, but governments, especially governments of developing countries like India, prioritize tasks and allocate budgets for other aspirational and other tasks of government. So the budgets allocated for SDGs sometimes fall short of what is actually required. Now, this is a well-known fact that in a country like India, a less amount of money is spent behind scientific researches, behind the scholars who continue scientific researches, behind hospitality, for example medicines. So all of these things are deterrent to having a better sustainable development goals. Okay, so country like India, which is a developing country, we have these problems, we have these issues. The next one would be monitoring and ownership. Another challenge with SDGs attainment in India is that no single organization has been given ownership to this task. So there is no single organization taking care of this entire. So there is no governing body for SDGs. So although Niti Ayog is basically a body which does look after all of this thing in India, has been given the supervising capacity, yet some policy making and implementation powers lie with the states and other organizations as well. So we have state legislative, we have central legislative. So the problem is when a center tries to invoke certain concept or certain programs, there might be some states which would oppose that particular program. So then there remains a big gap between the central and the state, and then implementing of that particular program goes into vague. Okay, next is data for measuring progress. Government has been putting in all possible efforts for the SDGs attainment, a clear example of which is reduction in extreme poor population of India. We could establish this only after the data about the extreme poor people was collected continuously at regular intervals for years. Thus, data plays an important role in monitoring progress. However, data collection for all 17 SDGs is a huge challenge. Data, so now our country is having a population of 134 crores plus. So to have information about the needs and necessities of every human being in this country is a very big challenge. So data from all corners of the nation is sometimes unavailable or partially collected. Sometimes there is missing data, there are data redundancy, especially at subnational levels. So these are some of the challenges that we still have and need to cope around so that we can have a sustainable development goals as a program being successful. Okay, so the next is overcoming challenges in a sustainable development. Now, as we have learned about the challenges, we also need to know how to overcome those challenges. So the first thing would be defined leadership and ownership. Government needs to clarify or clearly specify and make one organization fully responsible for implementing the SDGs with full ownership. So this is very, very important. Next is measures for social inclusion. Since the challenge social inclusion has many demographic reasons or climatic reasons or cultural and social reasons, the measures for it should also be taken at all these fronts. So different reasons require the different actions, such as required policy changes or technology upgradation or awareness campaigns and so forth. Next would be defined scope. The scope and spread for each of the SDGs should be well laid out along with timeline with clearly marked expected milestones. So for example, for quality education SDG, a well-defined scope document can be prepared which lists like what is quality education at all levels, like primary level, middle school and the higher school. So school level education is one of the most important part of human development process. Next is what is expected in the field of education after a period of 5 years. For example, number of primary schools, middle schools, high schools, etc., numbers of teachers required, qualifications of the teachers, teacher training institutes, etc. Next would be clearly defined short-term and long-term milestones. So these are some of the defined scope that is required to overcome the challenge of SDGs. Next is clear indicators. There should be clearly defined indicators that help monitor the progress both at the quantity level and the quality level. For example, clean water SDG. So the quality of water in the environment, indicators about the physical properties of water, quality for water temperature and turbidity. Next would be indicators about the chemical characteristics of water, such as the pH and dissolved oxygen. Indicators about the biological indicators of water quality, such as algae and phytoplanktons, the growth of them. Okay, the quality of water available for people's consumption is very, very important. So this would be some of the clear indicators regarding the clear water SDG. Next would be correct and ample data for progress monitoring. For example, clustered indicators measuring a specific governance concept are sometimes available from multiple sources. To improve the accuracy of the indicator measurement and avoid double counting, these measures should be combined into a single clustered indicator. Normalization. Since the data collected may belong to different scales, it is necessary to standardize all data. This is done through a statistical process called normalization. Next is data aggregation. A simple average may be calculated using the structure of the index to arrive at the overall governance scores. And there are a lot of financing bodies that also do run and support the SDGs for a survival as an economy. So we have utilizing government higher education and research institutions like Indian Institute of Sciences, Indian Institute of Technologies, okay, Indian Institute of Management. Okay, so the public private partnerships, like government can encourage private players for investing in this sector. with public partnership. Now all of these sessions, session 1, 2 and 3 that we have learned is about a sustainable development, which is a direct input for green skills technology in information technology. Okay, please go through the video properly, and thank you for watching.